Jesus is intentionally perched in a low-key place because of the increasing threat on his life from Jewish authorities. He is, of course, not fearing death, having reconciled that it's one of the purposes of his very life. However, what he's managing is the synchronicity of time, because things are going to happen, but they have to happen at the right time. They have to happen at the right time to fulfill prophecy, to awaken faith, to demonstrate power, to secure human redemption. While in the region of Perea, he gets word that one of his dearest friends is experiencing crisis. Lazarus is sick, and unfortunately, he's sliding downward at a rapid pace. So much so that his sisters have hit the panic button and asked Jesus to come immediately to heal him. Martha, the oldest, and Mary, the younger of the two sisters, share a home with Lazarus, their brother, and they're particularly close friends with Jesus, who, whenever he is in town, he spends a lot of time with them. This friendship is so special that the sisters have no problem pressing on it in crisis. We can understand that because the friendship denotes that they ought have the right to press on Jesus in crisis, figuring Jesus to only be a day away. And they want him to know that he needs to make it to them before it is too late. What they don't know is what Jesus is managing in and surrounding his life, so close to his final week, walking in human flesh as he has for the past 33 years. Does he stay in the region of Perea, where he is for the moment safe and secure, with it being improbable that he will be arrested? Or does he risk going to Bethany and being arrested upon his arrival, and then cause there to be the early spin of prophecy until it spins in misalignment? The pressure is real. But for Jesus, the choice is quite easy. Redemption for all has to be protected, even if it causes confusion for the two friends who are extremely close to him. Martha and Mary still wonder why it took Jesus so long to respond to their issuance of crisis for their brother. The disciples will be confused about Jesus' language of Lazarus being asleep, or is it death, and what is this talk of him being resurrected? And all of this for the glory of God. But Jesus makes his choice. He doesn't immediately respond to their requests and doesn't show up, in fact, for 4 days. When he does, he's greeted first by Martha, overcome by grief, as any would expect. Mary at this moment is still at the house, no doubt being comforted and supported by people who count her loved and appreciated. Martha, making her way to Jesus, has to be mentally tugged. I know he loves us, and I know he values our connection. I have no doubt about that. We know exactly who he is, and we've valued that. We have taken care of that and sought to care for it and protect it. Did he not understand how sick Lazarus was? What could have made him delay? Should we have not considered him to have loved us as much as perhaps we have thought? And when she gets close enough to Jesus, she announces to him that Lazarus has died, and then she states what her expectation was. Lord, if you had been here, this would not have happened. That's clear to interpret, is it not? I cannot, by reading the text, judge mood, emotion, attitude, and countenance. I can't pick any of that up from reading the text, but I can discern expectation. And she is implying in her comment to Jesus that it was her expectation that he would have arrived sooner and gifted all of them with an intervention that would have kept Lazarus alive. We expect it to rank higher in your list of priorities. We thought that you would do anything for us at any time, and especially in crisis. So why did you go counter to our expectations? Well, Jesus tries to comfort her and to grow her at the same time. Martha, don't worry. Your brother will rise again. And she retorts, I know he'll rise again in the resurrection. And Jesus tells her, I am the resurrection, Martha. Jesus stands just outside the village with Martha, but he wants to speak to Mary too. So Martha runs back home, tells Mary. She comes just outside the village, probably because it's easier to get to the tomb from there. It's going to draw people out along with the sisters so that everybody gets to see the miracle when Jesus performs it. And not shockingly, Mary, after falling to Jesus' feet in grief, she reveals that her expectation was the same as her sister Martha's. We expected you to be here, because if you had been here, our brother would not have died. Now, Errol, I want to hang out here this weekend. We know that Jesus will ask for them to show him where they've laid the body. He will, despite 4 days in the tomb and decomposition having set in, the body stinking by now. Jesus will raise Lazarus from death, to the amazement of the village, and many are going to believe. And in fact, Lazarus's life itself is going to draw many to believe in Jesus because of what he experiences this day when Jesus raises him from the dead. Lazarus will now also become a target of those who want to kill Jesus, and they will, in fact, add Lazarus to the list of people that probably should be eliminated. All of that is powerful. All of it is dramatic. All of it is spiritually explosive. But I'm anchored this weekend on these expectations that Martha and Mary express about Jesus's delay. They don't ask him about his delay. They don't request any plausible explanation. They only state their expectations. We expected you to be here earlier. And Jesus checks it so compassionately. He checks it so skillfully. Lazarus will rise again. You all only saw me as miracle worker, but now you're going to be able to grow to see me as resurrection and life. You've watched me operate only on this side of the veil in temporality where life is being lived, but now I'm going to show you that the reach and length and height and depth of my power and authority, you'll see my power and authority to operate not just in temporality on this side of lived experience, but I'm going to reach my hand on the other side of the veil where death is dominating, and I'm going to show you that death has no sting, neither in Lazarus' life does the grave have any victory. And here's what I want to offer for our consideration this weekend. Faith is not licensed to ignore the need to steward your expectations. I'll say it again. Just because you have deep faith, it is not a license to ignore the need to steward your personal expectations. You can believe Jesus for anything, believe him for everything, make all of your requests known. But the sisters teach us that faith has to be stewarded by us to consider Jesus's fulfillment of prophecy, his obedience to God's will versus our personal desires and passions, our need to grow through experiences we wish he would either eliminate or heal. Faith is the license to believe God-sized things, but it has to be stewarded by us to ensure that we don't let our personal expectations become bigger than God's will in our lives. You can believe God for some big-sized things, but it has to be stewarded enough that you don't let your expectations make you forget that God is sovereign. Faith is not licensed to let our expectations run wild and unchecked. No filter, no strainer, no auditing, no accountability. I know you have the right to ask for whatever you want and believe God for it, but that does not give you the license to think that your expectations should always be met and that Jesus has to treat your expectations as an eternal urgency, because sometimes his sovereignty trumps your expectations. Me believing God for something does not make it as high a priority for Christ as his fulfillment of God's eternal will in my life. Does that make sense? My big faith has to be stewarded to always leave room for his big will to trump my personal expectations. And if he wants to ignore my expectations or to change my expectations, can he open doors? Yes, he can. Can he make ways? Yes, he can. Can he defeat enemies? Yes, he can. Can he give you big things? Yes, he can. Can he provide a big platform? Sure, he can. Can he open so many potential opportunities? You bet your bottom dollar that he can, but he doesn't capitulate to your expectations if it defies his human will. I'm free to pray what I want, to live with a vision that I have constructed, to carry a confidence in my abilities and capacities, but I have to steward that in a way that contents my prayers, leaving the authority in God's domain and being willing to adjust when a nevertheless is called for. Because my big faith and my big expectations have to be stewarded to honor Jesus' eternal power and his eternal will. So let me ask you, what expectations are you carrying for your life? What expectations are within the framework of your lived experience? What things have you assumed would just be easy because you believed the Lord that they would be? Or since he released the vision to you, or put a certain idea on your mind, or placed you where it was obvious that you were being purposely and providentially planted, that you then thought the right doors would easily swing open and that the people connected to where you needed to go were just going to make it easy for you and get out of the way and provide an open platform and pathway for you, and it becomes confusing, does it not? To be right in the center of his will and things not go smoothly. To do what he told you to do and it not be progressing fast and easy, or people not falling in line quick enough. Recovery is taking longer than you thought, and what makes it more theologically frustrating is when these have less to do with the enemy trying to frustrate and confuse things, but this is about the Lord's timing and his actions and his will and his providence and his desire and his responses and his movements in your life. Can you steward those expectations that you have in faith in such a way that God can change the timing or the circumstances or the outcomes in your life and it be quite okay with you? Can you still trust him? Will you still love him? Will your faith still be strong, and will you still believe in him? I'll confess, I carry so many expectations and faith for my life. Things that I know God can do, and I believe him to do it in my life. And when it doesn't happen, I've had my days. God, you always respond to my urgent cry. You have always intervened within a certain time span. So what's up with this late arrival? Letting me hang out here so long, making me carry this weight to the point of utter physical fatigue. I don't get it.